And we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
Blake, I am doing fantastic. I survived my trip to Idaho. I somehow managed to make it back after visiting the Kibbe Dome, and couldn't be more excited to talk to you today about what the heck is going on with the latest Lane Kiffin watch updates. And also, I know that we're going to get to Mike Norvell stuff as well.
Yeah, wild week. You know, I'm a little tired of everybody coming out, especially nationally, saying, this week's going to be bland. And then all of a sudden, Utah comes all the way back after giving up 400 yards rushing. And I'm just sitting here saying to myself, like, that's not a playoff team. Every time Kansas State had a long run, I kept saying to myself, that is not a playoff team. Because if the Big Ten or the SEC teams would have done that, people would have killed them. You know that, and I know that. And chaos almost prevailed. USC likely out, though, after a loss to Oregon. But it just, you know, it's always a wild week in college football, my man.
Well, okay, so here's my only thing. And I am incredibly grateful for every week of college football. So I don't want to come off as I'm being ungrateful and I don't love the sport. This had to have been one of the least impactful weekends in college football that I can remember. But from the coaching perspective, we made up for the craziness with everything that's been happening with Lane Kiffin. And today, the news with Mike Norvell being announced that he's returning for 2026. Like all those headlines, we made up for it. There weren't any cataclysmic games that altered the rankings significantly outside of the Georgia Tech Pitt game. Everything kind of went as chalk. And again, I'm not saying that that's an issue. It's more so there's really nothing that changed our perspective from what we had coming into the week.
Is Brent Key got other things on his mind?
Well, let me also add to that. It always comes back to Lane Kiffin. If that's how Georgia Tech played with Brent Key's name being brought up in coaching searches.
Which isn't even front page headline news.
Right. How does Ole Miss play in the Egg Bowl?
Well, pause. They played that bad 4 weeks ago when his name wasn't involved in any of this. And then
his name was starting to come up in coaching searches.
Maybe one or two, but not like it is at the current moment. And they ran all over. I mean, I'm not trying to be rude to Brent Key, but defensively, they just stink.
They're awful.
I mean, they're god-awful. And, you know, I wonder what Brent Key's going to ultimately do here, but this coaching carousel, as you bring up, so let's just get right into it. But before we do that, let's talk about our good friends over at FanDuel. By the way, just throwing this out there, FanDuel is the biggest winner in all of this coaching carousel by the numbers that continue to come up in here. But every Ruffino, almost said AYS, every Ruffino and Joe show is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Download the FD Sportsbook app for your futures, your parlays. Big week of Thanksgiving. You need to show all your aunts and uncles and cousins how good you've been betting this football season. You need to do that from the FD Sportsbook app. Show them, brag to them. All Thanksgiving is about bragging of how good you've been on FanDuel all year. So go over to FD Sportsbook or go over to FanDuel.com/RG for more details. You can set your preferences there. But Joe and I are proud to be sponsored and proud to be partnered with our good friends over at FanDuel. Joe, let's get into the latest. The Lane Kiffin saga continues as we're on day 9,682, it feels like for me, on what Lane Kiffin is going to do here. Now, to give some backstory to this, but since the last time you and I talked, Ole Miss met with Lane Kiffin on Friday and said that they were going to let him coach the Egg Bowl after publicly giving him an ultimatum. Because, of course, you backed down. Of course you did. Now it seems like Lane Kiffin is going to be coaching the Egg Bowl. I don't know how this makes it until Friday, but yet again, here we are. A lot of things have been reported. Ross Dellinger, Brandon Marcello have both come out and said that LSU is offering approximately 7 years, $98 million. So about $14 million a year for Lane Kiffin. Joe, now that this is kind of coming to the final week here, what are your thoughts?
Well, before we talk about speculation on what's actually going to ultimately happen, I think that at the end of the day, nobody has any freaking clue what the actual decision is going to be, despite a lot of signs pointing towards LSU. My first thought with this, and I kind of alluded to it a second ago, what is going to happen in the Egg Bowl? Because this year is a year where Mississippi State looks a lot more competitive than they've been in recent seasons. They have the ability to put up a fight. They have multiple games this year where they have gone toe-to-toe with top teams or middle-of-the-pack teams in the SEC when they probably didn't have any right to. Jeff Levy has this team fighting. One quote from Ross Dellinger's article on Friday really caught my attention.
It won't go until Friday?
Well, it's not good. The players know, they read it all. It sounds like the tone in the locker room is not good at the very moment.
Well, he's just gonna have to, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I really wonder how they're gonna show up on they playing on Friday or is it Saturday?
It's Friday. Let's bring up this. Again, everybody's coming down on Lane Kiffin right now. I understand why. Lane Kiffin's not walking away from his team because if he wanted to walk away to Florida or LSU, he could have done it already. He hadn't walked away. He walked in there in that ultimatum meeting with Ole Miss on Friday and said, fire me, suspend me. I double dog dare you. And with all due respect, Ole Miss saying that there wasn't an ultimatum, with all due respect, Ross Dellinger, Brandon Marcello, Matt Zenitz, all of these guys know more than you. Newsflash to you little small source dudes on Twitter that are Ole Miss fans that have a Trinidad flag, they know more than you. And when they came out along with Chris Lowe, who, by the way, newsflash, if Chris Lowe reports anything with any ties to Nick Saban, you better shut up and listen. So when he comes and says that there's an ultimatum, and then Lane Kiffin walks off in that ultimatum and says, do it then. Now, I heard that Lane Kiffin walked off in that meeting on Friday and said, you're going to have to show me, now that the clearinghouse is here, how we're going to be able to approve all of these collectives and all of these collective deals. Because right now, it's not working. So we got grandfathered in on the deals that we made. What is the plan going forward? Ole Miss is not willing to admit that the clearinghouse problem is the biggest hurdle that Keith Carter and company, along with Walker Jones, has not been able to overcome. He called your bluff, and you backed down. Joe, Ole Miss was the guy at the bar who got in a little bit of a scuffle, and he poked his chest out and said, yeah, you want to fight? And then the dude stood up, and he saw that he was 7 foot tall and was like, all right, I might want to back down. But that you can't give a guy an ultimatum, leak it to Chris Lowe, and then say we're going to make a decision on Friday and back down. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, with all due respect, you cannot give the contract that LSU and Florida can give. You cannot legally. You keep making up these lies in reference to, oh, well, it's technically an extension through 2031. You can only have 4-year deals. I mean, like that is, I'm not even going to go there anymore. So I don't understand that. The calendar is the problem here for everybody. And I thought that Nick Saban brought it up and probably, hopefully, gets all of this done. The calendar's got to get changed because it kills LSU, it kills Florida, it kills Ole Miss. And those kids shouldn't be hurt with it. Now, Joe, as I've been saying since not this past Thursday, but the Thursday before, if you want to know how all this started, just go to AYS. We did an hour and 30-minute long show of everything I was hearing. Joe, LSU ain't backing down. They are not backing down. Got to be real with you. Joe, it's not the only coach that's been asking questions about this. Since LSU has come out with a 7-year, $98 million deal, along with, and I heard different than Ross, I heard it was 30+ million in NIL. Joe, listen, it's going to be laughed at when I say this. There are massive Power 4 head coaches right now that have contacted LSU and asked if this is legit. I'm not guessing about that. Know it for a fact. Massive Power 4 head coaches have been calling Verge Alsbury's phone and saying, are you serious about this? Not the contract. Are you willing to spend that much for your roster? I don't know where this is going. If everybody keeps asking me for percentages, I put 40, 40, 20, 40 LSU, 40 Florida, 20 Ole Miss. I just don't know if he goes. I don't know if I see a world where he goes back unless sentimental, he just can't leave. Maybe that is a plausibility. But LSU and Florida are not backing down here. Now, when the day comes, there will be a story that comes out between me and arguably one of the biggest national media guys in the country. Wednesday, I know for a fact that when the Tuesday meeting got canceled between Florida and John Summerall, Florida didn't back down. That Wednesday, they had a meeting with John Summerall. People come out here and say sources, by the way. I don't need the sources on this one. I'll leave it there. And in due time, me and this person will do a show together, and we will talk about it. But
I'm intrigued for this. When is this coming? When is this show happening?
Let's let all of this settle, and we'll have the conversation about it.
Okay.
I'm not guessing. And if you don't find my credibility large, well, you're definitely going to find his very much the same, because we both did it and I saw it with my own eyes. Okay. Bottom line is this. I do think Florida's looking around just in case. LSU really isn't. They're not. And it could come back to bite them in the ass. So we will see. If you ask me right now, I lean more towards Florida LSU because I think it's just so overwhelming. I don't know, though. That is just a guess. I don't know how this gets to Friday. I don't. I legitimately don't know how this gets to Friday. Maybe it does. I don't know.
I feel like if we got the whole announcement thing, that it's kind of setting up for something was determined and some sort of respect was asked to be given in terms of that announcement not coming out. So maybe this does end up being a Saturday morning announcement, and you and I are you're probably going to have to do a long reaction show to it, and then you and I end up reconvening to do our own reaction to it as well. But I got two things just off of my own trying to attempt to read any tea leaves here, because there's just so much information, and it's no one knows except for Lane.
Correct.
Knowing Ross and how he operates, I feel like the way that the article was pointed so aggressively in the direction of LSU, that does feel incredibly telling. I don't think Ross, knowing how he operates, that I don't think that he's going to write a story about LSU being the primary frontrunner and the most aggressive team in the mix for that push to go get Lane Kiffin. I don't think that he would do that if he doesn't believe that that's where this is trending towards. I think that that's a very critical part.
I've been told that LSU is willing to go up to $16 million per year.
That's insane if that's true. Mm-hmm. To that point,
Hold on.
No, I'm not saying insane in a bad way. I'm saying insane in like, wow.
No.
Like,
no, hold on. As Thursday's show went to Friday's Ross Dellinger article, I'm not guessing on that one. They are willing to go 7 years, $16 million per. Not guessing.
I believe you. I believe you.
They're not going to back down off of this. Joe, I think they would cap themselves around 16 and a half if it came down to it. If Florida goes higher than that, listen, if Lane goes somewhere else besides LSU, it's preference, not resources.
Right. Sorry, I was just double checking Kirby's his $13 million.
$13 million.
Wow.
But if I'm not mistaken, Kirby's contract is a lot like Nick's, that when someone gets paid more money than him, then George has to match it. Yes.
Is Jimmy Sexton Kirby's agent?
He is.
He's a sick MFer, dude. I mean, that's just so annoying. Because if he pulls this off, he gets Lane the $16 million, then well, how convenient. Kirby also gets $16 million. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, though, you brought up the anecdote. Everybody understands. You mentioned how coaches were intrigued by what was put on the table here. All of these coaches are paying.
4 head coaches, yes.
They're always paying attention to stuff like this, and so are their agents. I think, and as you mentioned here, that they're all in on Lane. They might not be going and looking in other directions as much as Florida and other programs are at the current moment. I feel like if you're bringing that up, that does set LSU up to be in a very, very good position if for whatever reason Lane chooses not to pick LSU.
Correct.
Because one of the criticisms at the beginning of this opening was people were saying LSU wouldn't have enough money because of the firing with Brian Kelly. People were saying that, and we even said it, LSU was concerning because of the governor involvement and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. He's backed off, and it's clear that financial commitment has been put towards this opening. So if all those numbers are out there and coaches are opening their eyes to it, I think that we can move past any concerns about LSU, this opening not being the best available opening for this cycle.
I think Brian Kelly is going to settle, but that's neither here nor there. Okay. I think that LSU is doing this because they know that they're going to settle. And the truth of the matter is that Landry's comments did exactly the opposite of what we all thought it would do and piss some people off. I don't know what Lane's going to do. I have no clue, but he's going to step to the podium tomorrow morning in front of Oxford or Ole Miss media, and he's going to get hammered. He's going to get absolutely hammered. It is going to be must-see TV. So I guess we see what happens there. I'm sure it's been a long weekend. Joe, his kids were in Baton Rouge on Saturday.
Lane's kids were.
Yeah, now I would assume that's because, his daughter's dating Whit Weeks.
Right.
The son ain't. The son's out there.
I would hope not.
Yeah, before a game, he's wearing LSU headphones. So I don't, I don't know what all of that means. Look, I'm not going to act like that I'm in the mind or know where this thing goes. I just don't think LSU will back down from a resource standpoint. Florida, on the other side of this, Joe, before we move to Norvell, there's a lot of confidence coming out of Gainesville that he's going there too. So we hadn't really talked about Florida here. There's a lot of confidence coming out of Gainesville that he's going there.
Which is surprising though, because I feel like that there's been a lot less like really backed reporting. I feel like every time I get an update, it's, well, okay, this is shifting towards LSU. This is shifting towards LSU. It just feels like I might be misreading this, that Florida feels like they're just in it because of the brand.
Well, here's the question. Are we all getting sextoned?
Pause. I think that we might
pause,
be.
But are we all getting Jimmy Sexton?
I think that that's plausible that this all might be part of the Jimmy Sexton game, that we're getting jerked around.
How do you get LSU and Florida to their highest number? Say LSU leads, and then Florida counters, Ole Miss counters, and then LSU counters and says, hey, everybody's going to sit around. NACO's reported that they're at 13 million. Marcelo comes out 30 seconds later and says, sources, LSU saying now they're up to 14 million. I promise you, as I've been saying from 2 Thursdays ago, they're not going to get beat on resources on this one. I promise you, it's not going to happen. If he chooses, whatever he chooses, it's not going to be because of resources. It's going to be because he wanted to go to Florida. He sees it as a better opportunity, or he stays at Ole Miss because of what he built. Mm-hmm. That is the bottom line. And he very well may choose this, and he very well may think that Florida is the better opportunity here. I don't know. And I'm not going to act like I don't know. Here's another thing. Don't tell me that he doesn't have a decision made up in his mind. I refuse to.
I agree with that. I am sure he and Sexton have already communicated to one another what the plan is, the timeline is. The statement that comes out from the Ole Miss athletic administration to me was like the real indicator that something had to have been decided. You do not put out that statement with that tone if there has not been something that has been established. It did not seem like we're being patient here. It felt like you'll find out what we came to.
And that's a whole nother conversation that we could spend an hour on. By the way, then fire him. You can't walk out there with brass balls and then turn into, we have no marbles, 6'7". You can't do that. You can't do that. It shows that Ole Miss hasn't been here before. I mean, with all due respect to Keith Carter, I know it's not all your decision. You need your chancellor. Then tell him to take the job. Tell him you're suspending him until further notice. And saying that you know what? This is what I would have done. There's multiple reports that you've been speaking with Governor Jeff Landry of Louisiana. We're suspending you until we do an investigation. suspending you with pay. And guess what he's going to do? He's going to leave. But the only thing I would say, Ole Miss completely messed up all of their leverage. Lane doesn't want to leave. He wants to coach the playoffs. You should have made Florida and LSU wait. By the way, the coach that you're going after, and John Summerall, probably is going to make the playoffs too.
Can I add? I got to add this. We kind of alluded to this. Chris Lowe reported on the fact that if Lane Kiffin were theoretically not to coach in the playoff, and this does come to fruition, Chris Lowe reported, we alluded to it, and then the next day Chris Lowe reported that
Joe Judge.
Well, no, not Joe Judge, that the committee would weigh heavily Ole Miss's seeding if they were to win out, where they would be placed if Lane Kiffin doesn't coach. He didn't say they'd be taken out, but I think that with the whole what's the Florida State quarterback's name that got hurt a couple of years ago?
What's his name?
Jordan Travis. When Travis got hurt, and there was that whole line in their protocol that I went and found on their website, I do wonder, how does that affect their seeding? And then secondly, if they lost the Egg Bowl and they had 2 losses, I feel like they would automatically just get ripped out. Like they would automatically get taken out of the playoff mix.
Maybe, but you can't do that and then say Utah's on the brink of getting.
Well, to be honest with you, I think if they have an Ole Miss, I think that they'd probably put Vanderbilt in.
I think you're probably right there.
Because they would have beaten a ranked Tennessee team to end the season, most likely, and it would make the better case than Utah or BYU.
I mean, look, man, I'm sorry. Ole Miss bungled this one. You should have told LSU to wait and Florida to wait and see what happens. I get you want your coach too. I get that, but you panicked. You completely panicked. You know who else panicked here, Joe?
Florida State.
Florida State has announced that they are going to be keeping Mike Norvell for the 2026 season. Joe, there's been massive amounts of speculation over and over again. It seems like every week. This season has not gone great. Florida State is holding on to Mike Norvell. What is your thoughts?
Well, I got one stipulation I want to bring up with this in a second, but we talked about this a while ago back when they released that long-winded statement in October, and I have since changed my perspective, and I realize for a fan base that really badly wants to win, keeping Mike Norvell is absolutely a slap in the face. They have gotten worse since that October segment that we did, and we argued with one another about if it's the right decision or not. My sense on this, and it goes in line with what my thought process was in October, which is why spend the $58 million when you could put that money towards bolstering your NIL and trying to make sure that you have a really good roster as his buyout starts to go down. I do wonder if that we don't see some sort of a contract renegotiation for him where he has to put money back into the NIL fund again. And frankly, he should offer to even do that for the fact that they're letting him come back. The one layer to this, Blake, I don't think it's going to happen based on how Florida played against Tennessee, because they look like they're dead. They look like they have nothing left. They look like they're barely trying. They're just trying to finish the season and get to winter break. If Florida beats Florida State, does this change? If Florida beats Florida State, do they fire him? You can't go 5-7 with a loss to Florida.
You mean to tell me that you came out with a statement saying that you're going to make a decision at the end of the year, then you came out with a statement saying that you're going to keep him for 2026, only for 7 days later then to fire him?
But this is I don't think that they would do it. But it's a reality that we got to talk about.
Done? You shouldn't have said a damn word.
This is my point.
Uh-huh.
This is my point. It's how ridiculous they look.
Well, this is what I think Florida State was trying to do. All right, it's not great right now, but let's see if we can get some wins in the back half of this schedule here that's not that great. And they got their teeth kicked in.
Yeah.
And so they thought, well, man, even if we, go 4-2 in the back half of the season, well, it's not that bad. It's not great, but it's not that bad. And they kept losing. They were betting on that they were going to win, and they kept losing. Joe, Friday night was god awful. I don't even know what to say. You got to rip the Band-Aid off. Mm-hmm. Because if you give money for next year's schedule, it's just going to be more money wasted when you fire Mike Norvell. When you start doing the money like this, look at what Florida did. Look at what LSU did. Look at what Penn State did. Now, James Franklin was actually, this isn't the time or place, but sidebar. James Franklin went up thousands of notches for me this week, agreeing to a $9 million buyout and wanting to coach and not worrying about the money. James Franklin, I will always be now a fan of James Franklin. You showed me your character. Florida State, your program's in the dumpster. Now, Joe, I'm going to tell you this. And for the last 3 weeks, I've been talking with our friends over at College Football Addiction. Don't act like Mike Alford, their AD, hasn't been talking to coaches behind Mike Norvell's back. Because they've been talking to coaches behind Mike Norvell's back, whether they want to admit it or not. I don't think they're letting Mike Alford, the sitting AD, make this move. It's above his pay grade. They're not letting him make it. And for what? To have another dead season? Do you not have the money? Is that a problem? Again, I will bring this up. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of this, but Joe, remember when Florida State threatened to leave the ACC? Remember when they said that they were going to pay the $100 million? Mm-hmm. Well, now your program's in the shitter, and now what are you doing? All of a sudden, you don't have the money. Why? You keep balking at every situation. You're not a serious run program right now. I don't think Mike Norvell's a bad head coach. I don't. But he had one good season. He had on a lot of portal players, and you don't want to rebuild with him. What did you think this season was going to be after you went 2-10? Joe, we talked about it in the preseason. There may be a 6-6, 7-5 football team. Here we stand. Look, man, they should have pulled the plug. Quite honestly, to Florida State fans, the things that I've heard, I'm not firing Mike Alford either, because it's above his pay grade in all of this. His bosses are telling him that he can't do it. So, Joe, I mean, you had a chance to get James Franklin. James Franklin, when the news came out with Pete Thamel on College Game Day last weekend, the pressure was put on you because that's where he wanted to be. And you still balked at it. You didn't do anything. Joe, they're not serious about winning. They're just not. They keep coming out with these idle threats. Stop making these idle threats and make the move what's the best for your program. Because Joe, no one's going to give them money. Name a booster that's going to give Mike Norvell money now. It's
a waste of money. You're throwing money at him to not do anything.
You know what it is? So then if you do, okay, then you risk the problem of him staying and winning a couple of games, and then you could use that money to fire him and his staff. It's another dead season. So if you're a Florida State fan, what do you have to look forward to? God, that's the same reason why. You want to know why Penn State and LSU fired their head coaches? Because they were like, guys, it's inevitable. Yeah, we're in a bad spot, but we can't let this continue. This can't continue here. We got to move on.
One of the things that I overlooked and why I kind of admittedly regret my initial take on this, that I just completely misjudged. You lose the fan base, you lose those that are financially committed to supporting the football program by keeping Mike Norvell around. Credit to Clay Fink, younger guy who covers Florida State. He tweeted this, and I thought that it was spot on. He said, Florida State administration just told the whole world they are not serious about football. With everything that's going on, you just mentioned here that they had this whole move that they tried to flex their muscles and say that we're getting out of the ACC. We're better than this. We need to go move on to bigger and better things. Trying to act like you're going to be one of the premier brands in the sport. Meanwhile, you're keeping a losing coach who has regressed, who has taken multiple steps backward and does not have the foundation on his roster that we can look ahead to go, okay, well, at least they got these young core guys that are going to help. This isn't a situation like Florida last year where they had DJ Lagway, and you looked at DJ Lagway, it's like, well, they were kind of rough this year, but man, if DJ Lagway hits next season, everything is going to really start to come together. Who's the young, true, big-time playmaker? Usman Chroma's a great player, and I think that there's a couple of other really good youngsters that started to contribute and play and step into the mix, and I think those guys will be important for next year. But who's the next great quarterback? Who's the next great guy that is going to take you over the top?
They got to go in the portal.
Great, here we go again.
We talked about last year about when you don't recruit from the high school ranks and build a foundation, you're going to crumble. Now, Florida State fans, Joe brought up Florida here. Joe, Florida, now that we're in hindsight, Florida completely screwed up. Because think about it. If Florida would have fired Billy Napier last year, then they more than likely, remember what we were talking about? It was about they're going to go get Lane Kiffin. Now you might miss on him. So what's the egg on the face of Scott Strickland going to be if that man says, I'm staying at Ole Miss or I'm going to LSU? So when you don't fire your head coach and you looking, Alex Golish might be gone, John Summerall might be gone, Lane Kiffin might be gone, James Franklin might be gone, then who do you go get? You got to go now back to the G5 ranks. Because when you have a massive coaching carousel and now these guys got massive buyouts, they're not going to uproot their family yet again. You make fun of Florida for what's going on right now when you're in the same exact spot. You got to make the move. Joe, people look at Florida. I talked to an assistant AD this weekend. I'm sure you know the school. And I was like, we were just talking about the whole thing. You know, we're sitting there, we're talking before a game, and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, dude, brother, you paid Brian Kelly $53 million to walk away. All right. And he just sits there and he tells me, he goes, Blake, look what Florida did. Now they're in a dogfight for Lane Kiffin. With us, with staying at Ole Miss, what would have happened if they fired Billy Napier last year after Texas A&M? Now you're in a spot, if you're Florida State, you might be in the same spot. Because let's just hypothetically say this. Are you a better job than Auburn right now? Because it seems like a lot of people don't want to go to Auburn. Are you a better job than Arkansas? I mean, could you have a debate with Penn State? I mean, Joe, I got to be real with you. It gets to a place in time where the inaction and the scare to have the inaction, now what? Now what? And you're going to find yourself back here. Joe, we're going to be talking about this a year from now. A year now, me and you are going to have this conversation. And you know what else you can't do? What if Lincoln Riley wants to leave USC? What if he wants to get back down to the South? That's the biggest unkept rumored secret. What if you can't get him now? So it just gets to a point where Florida State has completely mismanaged this entire thing. From the time that they said they wanted to leave the ACC until today, I feel like from a sporting aspect, they've been completely mismanaged.
I got two thoughts that kind of comes off of that. One, I'd be really curious to go back and really dig into situations like the Norvell Napier ones where you have a coach that's more than 3 years into his time with a program and there's clear signs of it not working, and you decide to give a coach one more year. I'd love to know if there's even success stories that have come from that, because frankly, I don't think that there are. I can't think of a time that's worked. It almost never turns around. We're not talking about Nick Saban started with a bad record at Alabama. No. That's first season. I'm talking about somebody who's been around for 4 years, and there's been steps backward and there has not been consistency. When has there been an instance where a school has doubled down and said, we're going to give him one more year and see what happens? Most of the time, I feel like they end up getting fired. Here's the other thing, though, Blake. I hope that this is their approach and it has nothing to do with financials. And this is speculation, and I would hope Florida State. I'm offering you this guy's Florida State as an excuse. Feel free to use this. This is a coaching carousel where there are a lot of big brands currently open. There are not a lot of premier candidates. I would hope that the administration's argument would be, and they probably wouldn't be public with this, we don't want to get in a race that we don't think that we're going to necessarily be able to win. They know that they're not going to be able to get the one guy that everybody wants in Lane Kiffin. James Franklin's off the board, and the rest of the options are good options, not great options, though.
That's mismanagement on them on James Franklin.
Right. But yeah, separate from Franklin though, which would have been a really good option for them.
Mm-hmm.
I would think that would be the one good excuse that they don't want to jump into a coaching cycle and then be forced to make a hire that they're not in love with.
Well, you know, if you would have done this last year, what if they would have hired Deion?
Yeah.
But could you imagine James Franklin recruiting in South Florida? As look at all the players that left. Joe, now they're at 18 players that have flipped or left Penn State. He's left. I'm with you there. Look, I mean, you can't have inaction. You can't be scared.
No.
You can't be scared because you don't, Joe, we don't know. You and I don't know who's on the table. What if Dabo Swinney is on the table? Shit, Arkansas, I mean, it came out from Brandon Marcello that today that Arkansas's interviewed 22 candidates and that some of the early rumors of these massive P4 coaches, and you kept clowning about this, Joe, it was true. Like
I tried to tell you it was a viable, it was something that Arkansas would do. I hope it comes to fruition, man. I'm gonna be a wizard if that comes to fruition.
It's not going to, because you know why? Arkansas. Well, Arkansas, I heard, also talked to Franklin, and they didn't want to give him more money for his staff or NIL. So, I mean, here's the real truth. Somebody's not going to get Drinkwitz. Meaning, Drink's not going to get one of the big three jobs, hypothetically speaking. You could have gotten Drink. Again, what is Lincoln Riley going to do? He's either going to sign an extension or he's going to leave. So now what? Again, we can stay on this all day, but Florida State, you got mismanaged, or you mismanaged your whole situation. Yeah. All right, let's move to football here. Joe, a big game in Oregon yesterday as Oregon took on USC and was able to prevail. Joe, when we recap this game, what are your thoughts?
Blake, one of the biggest narratives that we had on the show, that nationally a lot of big shows had, and then also people from other fan bases when talking about Oregon, it was that they weren't being tested. They had a schedule up until this point that they weren't challenged by a legitimate threat. Iowa was a nice little test, and it provided them with a chance to prove themselves in a difficult road environment, in the rain, needing to lean on their run game, and they passed that test. USC, and I still stand by this, even though they lost by multiple scores, was a legitimate quality opponent. A team that very well, if they were firing on all cylinders, could have beaten them, gone to the college football playoff. But like, they stepped up and they completely knocked USC on their ass. Mm-hmm. A team that showed that they were capable of being physical. Oregon out-physicaled them. They ran the ball very consistently. They made a lot of big plays when they needed to. And this is the thing that was the most impressive to me, Blake, for Oregon. They were incredibly banged up and hobbled coming into this.
Yeah.
Offensive line injuries, DK Moore.
Right.
Yeah, you're dealing with all that, Blake. And to have played that, to have won so confidently, to look as well-rounded and consistent and as solid, despite that, really plays to what we've talked about with Dan Lanning. He's recruited well. He's developed the foundation of this roster. They've got really underrated depth. And Blake, I think that this is one of those games that really solidifies that Oregon is more of a threat than we were giving them credit for.
Well, look, and I thought during the game that it could have been a bigger separation between Oregon and USC for what it's worth if they wouldn't have had 130 yards worth of penalties. Joe, 130 yards worth of penalties could have really separated. Now, USC didn't play clean either. They had over 100 yards of penalties. But I thought the 42-27, it already looks dominating because it is. The truth of the matter was, I kept feeling like, damn, man, Oregon just kind of keep shooting themselves in the foot, And why that game was so tight throughout in certain situations. You know, you got multiple situations. I think with the last one, if I'm not mistaken, it was you're tied at half, and then you're tied going into the fourth quarter in a lot of you're not tied at half. You're up a couple of scores at half, excuse me. But then you start trading some things, and you get down one score. You get down to a situation where you get to the third quarter, and it's 28-21, okay? And you got to go get a touchdown, which they did. But it just felt like to me that even though it's 42-27, it could have been a lot worse if those penalties coming out of Autzen for Oregon at home would have gotten cleaned up. But I gotta be blunt with you. Look, there were some bad plays from Oregon, like the interception. I talked about the third quarter, the interception. But when they needed a drive, Joe, the 7-play, 75-yard drive, they had a 13-yard run, a 5-yard run, an 11-yard run, multiple 5-yard runs to get into the end zone, then a 28-yard touchdown pass to Sadiq where he fell on his head, and I thought he broke his neck. And then all of a sudden I'm sitting here like, that dude might be the best player in the draft. Like, it's
he's
good he is. Jesus, my God. He's just so good. But, Joe, you brought up the biggest piece here. People look at USC and say to themselves, they're probably going to be a 9-3 team. They don't have the level of physicality. That was a really physical run game that we've seen from them this year. And, Joe, they only had 58 yards rushing. 53 yards rushing, excuse me. They had 1.9 yards per rush. 52. 28 carries on 52 yards, 1.9 yards per rush. Now, Maava, I thought, look, they had some bad plays. They were banged up too. USC had to get a new center in. The bad snap when they're going in to tie the game. A lot of bad situations again for USC on the road, but it was what you and I talked about in the preview. Could USC play clean football on the road to beat their biggest challenger this season? And they couldn't. The bad snap. Then after the bad snap, Maava throws a horrible interception. He had 2 on the day. I thought the game was a lot more lopsided in Oregon's favor than what the final score even indicates, even though it does look bad. That was an ass whooping if Oregon doesn't have 130 yards in penalties is insane. It is insane. One got picked up, by the way, in the fourth quarter and got waved off. It was a 15-yard face mask. And I'm like, dude, they almost had 150 yards worth of penalties. And I'm just like, okay. I mean, it was a pure ass whooping up front against a very physical unit in USC that's been running the ball on everybody in the Big Ten.
One thing, and we've mentioned this before when we've talked about Oregon, I freaking love the running back room that they have. I mean, I don't think that there's another team in the country that has a 3 deep. We've got these teams that got good dual running back rotations, like Georgia's Nate Frazier and Chauncey Bones is tremendous, and Notre Dame's Jadarian Price, Jeremiah Love is tremendous. But you were talking about Noah Whittington, who's taken over as this lead running back, who's just consistent for a bucket every single time you call on him. Jordan Davison has done a tremendous job of being the second guy in the rotation. And then Dyer Hill Jr. has been a spark plug for a million big plays.
I'm sorry, but he needs more touches.
I think he's going to eventually really, really turn out to be in the next couple of years just to be a complete total star. I think that he is going to be one of those dudes that has that in him. The thing too, by the way, the build and the makeup of this room, though, to have Whittington, who's the more compact, shiftier guy, to have the dump truck 230-pounder in Davison, and then have the speedster in Hill. I think it's just such tremendous creativity and understanding of how do we set up our offense to succeed. We've got 3 guys that do 3 different things, and we know how to deploy them and completely screw up everybody that we're facing.
And by the way, Hughes hit the portal, who was supposed to be your lead.
Well, we wonder. Yeah, see, people were talking about man, that's so messed up. Hughes, he's like, it's such an issue that he entered the transfer portal. He's a bust. That had nothing to do with him. This is a really damn good running back room. I don't think that he knew or even the Oregon expected that they were going to be able to get this much out of these guys.
They physically lean. And listen, I do think for Oregon moving forward, that offensive line's got to get healthy quickly, very quickly. Yeah. Can't have 3 guys out. But, man, they leaned on them. And that defensive line came to play. And to be real with you, this was the game that I think we always were looking for Oregon, as you alluded to in the open there. You go into double overtime with Penn State, you lose to Indiana, and everybody's like, yeah, what is Oregon? Okay, you came out clean versus Iowa in the monsoon. Who is Oregon? Brother, I don't care what that was an ass whooping. That was a pure blown ass whooping. Now, the only thing I'd say, you got a lot of teams that you're going to face in the playoff, depending on where you're seeding. Joe, this is the second time a wide receiver room went off on their ass. It's the second time now. And I look at situations like if you have a situation where you go up against Ohio State, you go up against A&M, God forbid Alabama comes out the slump that they're in, if they do at all. You got some rooms, man, with some really good weapons. Now, I don't know if they're I don't know where you would categorize and rank necessarily, like USC versus all these teams that will be in the playoff. But I like Craver and Concepcion. Clearly, I love what Ohio State has at receiver. I mean, there are a lot of really good teams, man. Your secondary is going to have to step up here. I mean, it's the second time when you faced a real passing attack where there were moments and times that you were getting obliterated. If Maava was a little bit more accurate and made better decisions, Joe Lemon was open on that drag route where he threw a pick. And I don't know if he doesn't go for 6. Like, I'm not trying to poo-poo on Maava here. Joe, that deep drag he missed for the pick was, oh, man, that was awful. So, again, you know, you had a lot of PIs against Indiana, but they physically kind of look like when you go back and just watch the game that they physically dominated you on the boundary. These young corners and these safeties better pick it up here. They better pick it up. And listen, I could make the argument, too, in the second half versus Penn State, you got lost. You get into the playoff, you better start figuring this thing out, man. Now, again, are you going to face a room better than USC? I don't know about better unless it's Ohio State. But you get up against A&M. You get up against a Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard. There's a lot of teams that can do a lot of really big things through the air that you better start being prepared for.
I think Alabama and Ohio State are the only two teams that are equal or better than USC on offense in terms of being able to throw the ball.
You wouldn't put Concepcion and Craver up there? Because I would.
I would, but here's the thing, though. Marcel Reed, as great as he's been, has been interception prone. And I would argue if they get Jaden Maeva to turn the ball over the way that he did in this game, I think that they could entice Marcel Reed.
They also scored 28 points in 5 minutes.
Yes. I mean, and it's no knock on Texas A&M. It's just more so if I think that Oregon's secondary plays well when they're going up against quarterbacks who actually, let me reframe that. To give Oregon secondary credit, they have been good at forcing turnovers when they've needed it the most. They forced a pick on against Indiana to keep them in the game when their offense wasn't doing very well. And in this game, they have 2 big interceptions that made the plays when they needed to. I think that you're making a really good point of they do have to be more consistent. They can't give up big plays the way that they do. Tunic Hines completely popped off and he played really well. Mekhi Lemon was bottled up, but I think teams have been going by this approach that have better bodies to cover this USC receiver room of saying, like, let's let these other guys go off and we're going to slow down Mekhi Lemon. Lo and behold, that leads to Mekhi Lemon throwing a touchdown pass, which was completely bonkers.
Which, by the way, the kid 16, what was his name again?
Tunic Hines.
I mean, with all due respect, the catch that Mekhi Lemon threw was ridiculous. Joe, I'm not going to lie to you. Oregon's secondary got big-bodied twice. That's twice now. I'm going to just I
don't disagree. It's not perfect. I don't disagree with you.
They got big-bodied. You know when you're playing pickup basketball and the big guy's always underneath the rim and he's throwing them wide-ass hips at you? They got big-bodied.
Well, Jacoby Lane is a basketball player, so I think
big-backed. I'm talking about Big Bertha'd. They got pushed around when they had no business being pushed around.
That's fair.
By the way, I gotta be blunt with you. Thieneman, we talked a lot about him now. All right. You missing some coverages, big dog. When I come in here and turn the projector on and I turn on that inside copy and you look lost in space, you better pick it up.
I don't have enough context to counter that. I didn't watch him that closely.
The deep drag. Giving the help along the sidelines. Don't run down to Mekhi Lemon. I mean, you got to be where you need to be, man. Instinctually, he's one of the best. But sometimes when he misses, those are big misses. They're big misses. So, again, love the physicality, but my God, you got to get better there. All right. Pitt. Boy, Pat Narduzzi played this one the best, didn't he? He gets skull-drugged. You want to go Pitt, Georgia Tech, by the way?
Yeah, let's go there, and then we'll do Oklahoma, Missouri after that.
No, let's go Oklahoma, Missouri. Let's go. You want
Okay.
to?
No, I'm good with either. I'm good. You already sort of leading the
All right, well, let's do Pitt and Georgia Tech. Joe, Pat Narduzzi is the modern-day Nostradamus, as he predicted that he was going to get beat down by Notre Dame. But all we got to do is win the next 2 ACC games. As Georgia Tech gets upset by Pitt, what is your thoughts?
Dude, it really actually kind of makes me wonder, and this is total conspiracy theory.
If you think he lost on purpose?
No, I don't think he lost on purpose. I think he mailed in prep for Notre Dame. I legitimately think that they mailed in the prep. They spent with the way that they came out, they were up 28-0. We're not talking about they won the game, Blake. They were up by, it looked like they were so prepared that they had been preparing for 2 weeks. I legitimately think the way that they played against Notre Dame that they just decided, hey, I thought he was being sarcastic. Narduzzi was being freaking serious.
He was.
I don't know. I'm being kind of facetious when I say that. They did really look like they were prepared, and they were prepared for the moment. I really wonder how they're going to play against Miami this upcoming weekend. That is going to be a far bigger challenge for them with the way that Miami has responded in recent weeks. But Blake, Heinschel looked pretty solid. I think that the biggest part with all this is that they took full advantage of Georgia Tech's defense just being complete and utter ass at the current moment.
Mm-hmm.
And Haynes King did not play well. I think that Haynes King, not to bring him down and to be super negative on him, he had a lot of rough plays, a lot of plays that
he can't have an off day for them to win. He can't have an off day for them to win.
That's what my whole point is. I think that Haynes King is so good and so important for Georgia Tech's success. And this applied last year when he got hurt. And it was something that we talked about in the preseason and when he got hurt at the beginning of the year. If he's available and he can play, they're a tremendous team. But when he's playing at his worst or he's banged up, in this situation he was playing at his worst, they don't have, it feels like, another playmaker that they can turn to. So I'm understanding why Georgia Tech's now out of the mix, man. And it's probably better for the playoff because who knows what would have happened if they showed up for their first game.
Well, here's the thing, Joe. One kid had 200 rushing yards on you. You let a guy go for 9.6 yards per carry. Turner went off. I don't want to say that Pitt put all of their stock into this game. Maybe I just think Notre Dame's that good. I'm actually going to be the one to defend Notre Dame here.
Look at you.
But you gave up runs to Turner of 56, 27, 23, 24, and 27. Joe, what the hell? And by the way, Haynes King, like, this is my biggest problem with Brent Key at the moment when you talk about this coaching search, by the way. Haynes King had 41 passing attempts and 20 rushes. He is their team. So I look at this entire situation and say anytime that Haynes King has a quote-unquote off day, they lose. He's been their team. Maybe Brent Key, I don't think he's looking forward to something else, but they're just not a great, solid overall team. Joe, the way that they leaned, the way that Pitt just absolutely leaned all over Georgia Tech, and it's how Georgia Tech got beat a couple of weeks ago when teams are running all over them. They just got leaned on. Joe, another thing, too, they had absolutely – this is your conspiracy theory that I kind of think that you're right. I looked at all of the guys that had receptions, right? Joe, you had more than 8 players get a reception against Georgia Tech. They had no idea how to counter this. They gave up big play after big play after big play over and over again. Joe, they gave up 10 plays over 20 yards. That's how bad you've been. And they can't push the ball down the field. Good on Pitt for rallying after getting kind of dog walked last week versus Notre Dame. But Jeremiah Love must have kind of rubbed off on Paul's Turner because he had 200 yards this week, and they just busted him right up, and there was nothing that they could do about it. 28-0. And I got to be real with you. I thought they sailed it in. The 14 points in the fourth quarter, Georgia Tech should have never had. They're rotating guys in and out. It was a complete bloodbath in Atlanta.
Here's the one thing that comes with this, though. I have no freaking idea who's going to play in the ACC championship, man. So I want to – here's the standings. Virginia 6-1, SMU 6-1, Pitt 6-1 in the conference, and Georgia Tech 6-2.
They don't
Miami
team to get in. I'm sorry.
Well, so this is what I'm kind of playing. Georgia Tech is 6-2. Duke is 5-2, and then Miami is behind Duke at 5-2. Miami, I don't think can get into the ACC championship game based on the fact that SMU won. I'm sure that there's some sort of qualifier that somebody could bring up and point out, but at the current moment, I don't think Pitt is going to beat Miami. It looks like it's SMU, Virginia, and we're about to send
SMU Virginia again back into the playoff again.
An 8-3 SMU team. I think an 8-3 SMU team is probably going to end up going. That's going to be
they'd be 10-3 because if they won it all, they'd have to win next week and they have to win the ACC title. So you're right. The best team in the most athletic team in the ACC is not going. I mean, Joe, I'm sorry, dude. Like, oh, bless
it. Here's one thing. Wait, here's one thing, and I might piss you off with this.
Oh, you're probably going
not new. I think that this plays into my argument of why Miami doesn't deserve to get into the playoff. And this kind of plays into why there can be some value in having the conference champion going to the college football playoff, is that if you can't win your conference championship and you claim to be so good and you claim to have beaten a team head to head and all that, if you can't win your conference and then you're that low down in the standings, why should you be valued as a team to get into the playoff?
Then Notre Dame shouldn't be in because they don't have a conference. You can't go play Stanford and pick somebody random like Navy when you got 9 conference games. Sorry to tell you this, but when you go and play Stanford, I get it's kind of a rival, and when you get to play one of the
big ACC team,
sounds good. Sounds good. We're yelling at the ACC, but you know what? I mean, look, man. This is why you got to do the at-large. It's why you got to do
I don't disagree with you. I have been on your side recently, and I have fully bought in on your side.
Because here's the thing: whether
you're keeping out Vanderbilt, seriously, like we're keeping out of Vanderbilt. That's who we're keeping out.
There you go. That's exactly what I was bringing up. Why is Vanderbilt getting punished because the ACC is ass? Like ass. Because they are.
Miami theoretically could, if there was at large, Miami would probably be the team that gets picked to go in. How insane would that be if the ACC champion did not represent they would have to get rid of conference championships.
No, you can't. Hold on. Can't do that. You know why you can't do that? Because unless some craziness breaks off, it's the highest ranked conferences. So the ACC champion, who might not be ranked over Tulane or JMU, by the way, those two teams would get in before the ACC champion if they're ranked higher. You see what I'm saying? It's about the conferences that have the higher ranked teams. This was the whole scenario of the ACC being left out. So,
by the way, can I want to throw this out there before we move on.
Games don't even matter anymore. Games don't even matter.
They don't.
Why do we even give a shit about week 1 anymore?
I'm not going to go down that fight with you.
The sport. Y'all killing the sport.
I'm not going to go down that fight with you again. Here's one thing I will say to bother you because I love doing this so much.
Here we go.
Miami loses to Pitt and they slide down in the rankings. I don't know how far they slide. Tulane works their way up and they move up. JMU enters the ranking. They enter the ranking. SMU is currently unranked at the current moment. SMU goes on to win the ACC. There is theoretically a world, as you just pointed out there. We could theoretically see unless I'm mismapping this.
Power 4 team not getting
two. We could have JMU and Tulane, I think, theoretically in this, right? No,
you would have the group of 5 that's already in there, and then you would have the ACC out. You know, it's only going to be one power conference that's going to be out, and it's probably going to be the ACC.
Okay, maybe I'm messing that up then.
Yeah, because think about it. You got to have one G5, and then it's the highest 5 ranked conferences. So let's say it's 2.
Wait. So that's what I'm saying though. It's
no, it would be the
American. You're not required to only have one G5 team. So if
No,
if this
it's
wait,
not.
wait, if this wait a second. Wait,
G5. You got to throw out the
I know.
G5 scenario.
Say the American Conference winner and the Sun Belt Conference winner are ranked higher than the ACC Conference winner. Does that not mean that those two conferences are technically valued ahead of the ACC for getting into the college football playoff?
You would, at least the way I interpret it, you're saying two Power 5 conferences or Power 4 conferences be out. It's just
no. I was saying the situation I just laid out with that JMU and Tulane would get in before any ACC team got in.
Yes.
That's what I was painting.
That's where we're currently at.
It's possible.
Over Miami, by the way, who beat Notre Dame.
In what I just painted, though, I said that Miami would have to have lost to Pitt this weekend. So, not 9-3, Miami team's not getting.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Hey, you know what we need to do? Expand it. Isn't that what Tony Petitti said? He's got to be fired. He needs to be fired by New Year.
Good luck with that.
Actually, a lot of Big Ten fans I thought were going to yell at me. They actually didn't. I was surprised.
Oh, a lot of them agree with you.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone's got his.
No one's got his back.
No.
You know who else didn't have someone's back?
Who's that?
Bo Prabula, Missouri, go into Norman, where Eli Drinkowitz was born, by the way, and fall to the Sooners 17-6. Painting a picture. If Oklahoma beats LSU this weekend, Joe, Oklahoma is going to find themselves into the playoff as Missouri is completely eliminated from this thing now. Your recap of this game.
Prabula playing in this game was extremely unexpected. We didn't even preview this game because we thought it was going to be a bloodbath because Zollers was going to be playing. Prabula late addition. He ends up being healthy, and I didn't think anything of it. And that assumption was correct because Prabula had a pretty rough day. He was completely smothered. He threw 2 interceptions. He was sacked 4 times. Blake, this Oklahoma team, and I mentioned this before, they have such an old school style of winning that it is something that is foreign to our eyes. They are winning through defense. They are winning purely through completely dragging down and forcing their opponents to make mistakes into handing them games. I haven't seen a team capably do this. We're not talking about a team that's got a good defense. Their defense is quite literally creating the plays that change the trajectory of games. Mm-hmm. Outside of the Satania long touchdown, a lot of the biggest moments in this game were because of special teams and defense. Like the biggest thing that comes with all this, I know that we've kind of talked about how Oklahoma's secondary has been inconsistent. This wasn't a game where they were going to be really super challenged because Missouri only had one really good receiver. To hold Missouri under 70 yards rushing is extremely, extremely impressive. And it's why they held Missouri to 6 points. This has been a team that has been unstoppable on the ground, even when Zollers was in. And they were able to completely shut down their run game. It's one of the biggest assets that they have. And I think that Oklahoma's case for why they will be a serious challenge in the college football playoff has been bolstered. They still have issues. They've got a lot of problems, which I'm sure that we're going to talk about here. But that defense is freaking unstoppable, and it's impossible to get things going on the ground against them.
Defense completely turned up and turned out the last 3 weeks. You got Tennessee on the road, you got Bama on the road, and you got a really good rushing attack and coming into town in Missouri. And, Joe, they beat 3 straight ranked opponents. That's how good they've been defensively. Now, you're right. Offensively, we got a lot to talk about here because Jesus, in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost. Joe, they might be the best. I mean, they're playing like one of, if not the best defense in the country right now. Mm-hmm. The way that they are physically getting after the quarterback without our Mason Thomas again, they just put so much pressure on you, and Venables has been in his bag the last 3 weeks. It is very impressive, but it's the style of play that I know that he probably wants to play. And they're doing this with an offense who, quite honestly, is anemic. Now, Alabama's kind of been out of their element a little bit. You look at Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee's kind of just Tennessee right now, even though they waxed Florida this weekend. But it's really impressive to see what Oklahoma's done defensively and just how they continue to do it. Again, I think Ahmad Hardy was put in between a rock and the hard place. He had 17 carries, 57 yards. Roberts could do nothing all day long. Wide receiver-wise, outside of Kevin Coleman, I just don't think that they have a game changer, and Bo Prabula was all over the place. You just keep suffocating teams that aren't able to execute in timely manners, and you're putting so much pressure on them. It's really impressive to see how defensively they've been this good, but, Joe, I got to admit, offensively, brother, it's a problem. It's a problem. Yet again, that offensive line's not good. John Mateer has saved your ass. They're not good. So defensively, yes, they can hold their own with anybody. But, Joe, I look at a playoff team like Ole Miss that you just went up against. That's a team that, like, we've already kind of gotten a little bit of a preview in this. Now, you did it to Bama, and you were able to do it on the road. So they kind of washed that tide, pun intended, so to speak. But, man, offensively, they are just really bad right now.
There's kind of two sides to this, the way that I look at it. So they had 276 total yards of offense. I don't know how they keep doing this, where they go under 300 yards of offense and they keep winning. This is why it's been really hard to talk about them, and it's also generally kind of annoying listening to Oklahoma fans try to dunk on everybody and being like, you don't get our team, you just don't get it, you hating on us. What they're doing is not at all in line with good winning football. Teams who go under 300 total yards of offense are not supposed to win no matter how good their defense is. It's just not supposed to. Part of that, I agree. I 100% agree with you. Their offense is really inconsistent. It's shaky. Mateer has been up and down. He makes a big play, and then he's erratic in his ball placements all over the place. They're up and down at trying to get the run game going, and you have another game where you don't have a running back over 4 yards a carry or going over 50 yards rushing. You're not even really committing touches to running backs. Robinson has 12 carries, and that's it. Mateer touched the ball 18 times as a registered runner. The one thing I will say, and maybe this is an asinine take. We watch these games with Oklahoma, and we think that they're letting teams hang around with them and stay in it close, which is essentially what happened in this game. Maybe that we're being deceived. Maybe that's just how they play. Maybe that is just how they survive, is that they keep everybody in arm's distance because they trust their defense that, we just need one big play from Satania. We just need one big play from Xavier Robinson. And we'll find a way to win this damn football game. It's nothing that we've ever really I can't think of a team who did something similar to this. Can you think of a team that did something like this?
Yeah, 2011 LSU.
Well, that's my point. That was
they lost
years ago.
They lost 2 games. Or no, that's 2007 LSU, but they were really much better. I mean, I'd say 2011. 2007 LSU to some extent.
But that's not supposed to exist in 2025.
No, it's not. It's not. I've seen far less offense with Les Miles and just legendary after legendary after legendary defenses do stuff like this, Joe. I mean, I lived it for 15 years of my life. I mean, you just got to be on every week. But to your point, I mean, Joe, at halftime, they had a field goal, a punt, a 3-and-out, a punt, a punt, a punt, a punt, kneel. Their last 8 possessions, they got 3 points. If it's not for the long Satania breakout, now Missouri had a shanked punt that got them within 35 yards for a touchdown. You had a big play and a bad punt that got you 14 points. Other than that, which I shouldn't say other than that, because Satania still made the play, right? Their last 8 drives, they could barely move the football. I mean, outside of the field goal, Joe, they had 38 yards, 0 yards, 18 yards, 12 yards, 3 yards. You're barely over 50 yards and a half. When they couldn't get anything. It's not like Missouri. Missouri, guess what they had? 3-and-out, 7 plays. And look, it's a big deal, and your defense just keeps performing over and over and over again. They're elite. And, Joe, they're going to keep them in a lot of games, playoffs included. But, Joe, there's going to be teams that can score 17 points on you, that can actually stop you a little bit better than Missouri did because their offenses can actually move the football. You know what it is? It's exactly what happened to you to Ole Miss.
I was just about to say the most balanced offense they played was Ole Miss, and they folded.
And they folded. Tennessee moved the ball all on you. So what happened there, Joe? Aguilar kept turning the ball over. Same with Ty Simpson. And look, Oklahoma's forcing the turnovers. You can't take that away from them. However, Joe, they can't make a run if offensively they're going to do like this. And everybody keeps trying to tell me it's the injury from John Mateer. No, it's not. You can't run the ball. And you don't have the receivers play in and play out. If you're not getting the explosive play, then you're not dominating. Deion Burks has not been great. I mean, he's had some good moments, but he's not been who we thought he was going to be. And that's just where we sit, man. I mean, it's where we're going to continue to sit. And I got to be blunt with you, too. Mateer's decision-making's got to get better. You got to stop throwing the RPOs in the flat and sometimes just go get 3 yards rushing. Just how the game works in the SEC, man. You can't keep throwing behind the line of scrimmage and think that it's going to work in the SEC ever.
Right. I'm really curious to see what happens to them in the playoff. I think that there's a couple of really good matchups for them where they can like really bludgeon them. And I think that there's some teams that they would face that would cause a lot of headaches for them. Like if they played, I'm not even going to talk about the seeded teams, like the top 4 teams. If they played in Oregon, would Oregon break through and run the ball on them? If they played a Texas Tech, would that be a team that challenged them? Would be the first like big time defensive challenge that they would see. I'm trying to think who else would maybe be able to break through on them.
Notre Dame.
I don't see. Here's the one thing: as a Notre Dame fan, I've watched CJ Carr have issues when he's been pressured, and a young dude. And this is the thing that they've done really well. Young quarterbacks, they victimize them. You know, they
There's
really
a problem though, Joe. They can't score. So I know CJ Carr's going to get opportunity after opportunity, even though he's got 4 interceptions the last 2 weeks, isn't it?
Yeah.
3 or 4. So I mean, you better just be on defensively every week.
I think A&M would be the true. I know that they're a top.
A&M would bludgeon. A&M would absolutely bludgeon.
I think they'd pop them.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what happens. But Oklahoma's the biggest wild card in the playoff.
I agree.
To be honest with you.
I agree. All right, Joe, anything else from week 13? What about that you want to talk about? What about that Utah comeback? Joe, they can't be in the playoffs even though they won. Even though they beat Kansas State, I refuse to have any conversation about Utah being in the playoff.
Look, I respect, and I know that we've got some Utah listeners. I respect Utah for the valiant effort that they put out there. I do agree with you. I think that we need to separate the two. I think that we need to separate the two notions of, hey, really great way to finish the game and to pull off a comeback. I think it's really freaking cool, too, by the way, that you've got Dampier and you've got Bird Ficklin, and you're able to use both of those guys, and they're both able to be really productive. But to your point here, like I just pulled up the box score, and I saw that when I saw the number again, I lost my train of thought. 472 yards rushing. Like that's supposed to be one of the reasons why we're supposed to support them. They're supposed to be a really good defensive team.
They're
supposed
not
to be a team that runs the ball and plays really good on defense. And I feel like every time that they've been challenged by a team that has an above average offense, they have had problems. 202 yards rushing that they gave up to BYU. They gave up to Texas Tech 173 yards rushing. I think that this Utah team is a solid team, but to your point, they're not a playoff team. BYU has had their own woes. I give them credit for the way that they finished against Cincinnati, who's kind of a messy team, but I do agree with you. Comeback was fun, just they're not a playoff
They gave up runs. This is from Josh Pate. They gave up a run of 24 yards, 2 runs of 33 yards, a run of 37 yards, a run of 44 yards, a run of 58 yards, and a run of 80 yards last night. But by the way, got to be blunt with you. Kansas State should fire their entire coaching staff today. You had 472 rushing yards and you lost. Yeah,
that's a really good point.
Like, everybody's looking at Utah because Utah's a top 14 team. And I understand that. If I'm a Kansas State fan, I'm calling for the entire staff to be fired today. Like, that is insane.
I've been tracking this. You know who they're calling for, right? That they want?
Colin Klein.
His name's been brought up as a head coach for some of these big jobs, man.
So he might get one of these big jobs. Will Stein might get one of these big jobs. It's not like that Will Stein's not asking for a couple of them. Sources.
I think if you're Kansas State, though, you got to go get him. Don't let him go somewhere else.
If he leaves A&M for Kansas State right now.
He could run the Big 12, though.
Yeah, he could also sit in A&M and get one of these big jobs because they're going to just keep spending and giving him money, and they're going to keep going off. By the way, knock. Marcel Reed comes back.
I don't know, man. Your alma mater calls you and he gives you triple the salary because he could always do really well at Kansas State for 5 years and then jump somewhere bigger.
You may be right there, but look, Utah, good on coming back. It's always great when you find ways to win. You've given up an average of 317 yards rushing against two teams in the Big 12. Jeremiah Love might have 500 by himself if you played him in the playoff. And I'm not exaggerating.
No.
Jeremiah Love would have 97 IVs attached to him because he's running so much he looked like an octopus.
It would only take him like 10 carries.
10 carries, 507 yards, and 17 scores.
Yeah, 50-yard touchdowns every time he touches the ball.
Hold on. The last month, they're averaging giving up over 250 yards on the ground.
Yeah, that's not good.
That's not good at all. That's so bad. Speaking of BYU, any thoughts on them?
The main thing that I just threw down there is that I really like watching LJ Martin. He's like one of these dudes that's super underrated, and I think that he's such a hard-ass runner, 220 yards on the ground.
Yep.
If there is a second Big 12 team to be in the conversation, it would be BYU. But I don't think that they get in still. I think that there's generally too many problems when the one test that they saw, they got their asses kicked. I got a problem with that, and I think it's the one thing that should hold them out of the convo.
I got two for you, and I got to bring it up. The Fighting Luke Fickles knocking off number 21 Illinois. Let's go, Fickle. Let's go, Fickle. I understand it. I get it. Luke Altmaier wasn't the best, but the Fighting Luke Fickles coming up with a win, Joe. They threw the ball for 92 yards. 92 yards, and they beat a ranked Illinois team 27-10. Oh, my God. I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. I was like, Joe, there was a point in time where they had 41 yards passing and going into the fourth quarter. And I'm like, they're literally not going to throw for over 50 yards and win a game against a ranked opponent. Oh, my God. Illinois, what are we doing at running back, by the way?
Yeah.
When Luke Altmaier has to have 13 carries and is your leading rusher, you're going to get your ass whooped. But that was mine. I got to go with the Fighting Luke Fickles, Wisconsin. We're back up. That's number one. Oh, by the way, do you remember our conversation on Wednesday in our pick'ems?
What was it? Vanderbilt?
You took the Kentucky Wildcats over the Vanderbilt Commodores, and I told you.
No. I took him to cover. Yeah. Hold on.
You took him to cover, and I told you it was going to be a bloodbath, and you were like, "Oh, Kentucky obliterated Florida last week," and I'm like, "Don't do it, Joe. Here comes Clark Lee. They're about to flip Jared Curtis. They're doing a lot of good things in Las Vegas." And here come the Commodores, the lock of the week in a blowout. You gotta love it.
That game pissed me off.
On the side of the railing, twerking up and down the pole. You gotta love it. We're twerking in Nashville. They're twerking in Nashville for a playoff spot. You know what? Lane Kiffin leaves. Knock them out. Bring in Nash Vegas, baby. I want to see Diego Pavia's mom twerking on my ESPN
Okay.
playoff screen.
I thought they were supposed to be an academic school.
Twerking for Jesus. They're twerking for Jesus.
Well, they're not a Christian school. They're
Oh,
an
yeah.
academic engineering school. I don't think there's anything Christian
You
about
gotta
engineering.
love it. The Vanderbilt Commodores coming to play. Oh, by the way, I'm just going to throw this out there just so Elks doesn't say anything. Ohio State. So we actually did bring up Ohio State in this show because I know
he did throw a super chat. We got a couple super chats. We got.
Brad says Matt be great, be hating on us.
You like hating on LSU? Is that who he's?
Oh, I don't know. I've never seen Brad and Chad.
Yeah, I don't know, Brad.
Hating on who, bro? Hating on who?
Is he hating on us? No, he's probably hating on LSU.
Brother, whatever. Elks with a $2 super chat says Florida State is a freshman taking a gap year. God, I mean, that's a really good way of
like a tanking season, honestly.
It's a really good way of explaining it. Marshall with a $5 super chat says rivalry week. Who is your early upset watch? Mine is Ole Miss and mine's Bama.
I think Ole Miss and it's probably just Ole Miss.
Ohio State.
I'm not going to go there. I think it'd be funny, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Dude, you know how funny that would be. Do you understand how funny that would be?
I think that would create
the laughter. The laughter that I would have because Ryan Day, the last time that he lost against Michigan.
Well, it would mean another national championship's coming, though.
Well, again, Ohio State fans say they wouldn't want to lose to Michigan to win a national title. I would lose to Michigan every year.
Yeah, if that's all you need to do.
So that's all you need to do. Marshall with a $10 super chat says, I don't know, guys. I took ULM on an undefeated season and still didn't make the playoff. College football can't even get it right. EA sucks. The irony is a 3-loss Miami team took my spot at number 12.
Go
ahead.
The mechanics for the video game are kind of biased towards. Well, they're very biased towards Power 4 teams. I've had that problem too. I don't know. There was one time
you gotta change your schedule. Your 4 non-conference teams, you gotta play all Power 4 ranked opponents.
Yeah, I've seen instances though where I've had like 4-loss teams get in as at-large teams. Not won their conference, like at-large 4-loss.
You gotta change the sliders. I saw this thing on YouTube. You gotta change the sliders to where everybody progresses better. That way, it kind of deviates itself, and the better teams get better. And because you can't keep bringing in 3 stars every year,
Right.
By the way, I've never not had a number 1 overall recruiting class.
Allegedly.
No, you want me to go show you? I got 12 5-stars committed right now.
What school? At UCLA or at LSU?
Come on. I only played 3 years with LSU. At UCLA, though, all I do is recruit California. I don't go anywhere.
I did it last year with my UCLA dynasty.
They always got like 5.
Yeah.
I might go get a couple of more. By the way, Nico's a cheat code on that game. He's a cheat code.
I believe it.
Alex says, how about Ohio State winning the Adolph at wide receiver?
David Adolph is one of their receivers that they had to turn to. No comment.
If he grew a little small mustache, we'd all have.
No. Yeah.
I mean, Ryan Day already has a nipple ring, to the least, Anyway, Marshall with a $5 super chat says, "It's just going to throw off this theory Elks has had the entire year. Illinois lost to Wisconsin, so is the Big Ten mid too."
I just never thought Illinois was good. I just never thought Illinois was a good team. I thought that Iowa was better. I thought that Washington was better.
This is the argument. The top 3 of the Big Ten may be better than the SEC at the current moment. As a conference, the Big Ten as a whole, all 18, it's not better than the SEC. It's not. Joe, you're talking about your 7th ranked team in the SEC being Texas.
I think Texas is flawed, but at the same time, I don't have the energy to get into a shouting match with you.
Okay, you want to go 7th in the Big Ten? Who's ranked seventh in the Big Ten right now?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Iowa. They've got the same record as Texas.
I'm taking Texas.
They have one more loss than Texas.
I'm taking Texas all day long.
That'd be your mistake.
No, it wouldn't.
Texas probably wins that game, but I don't think there's that much of a separation between them.
That white boy can't. Them white boys can't catch Arch Manning. Vandergroor. Why is everybody in Illinois' last name Vandergroor?
That's a great question.
Everybody's got a Van or a Von in front of it. You're all white.
I don't even know what European country that derives from. Is German?
German.
Yeah, I don't know.
And you got a receiver in the Big Ten named named Adolf. What are we doing here?
Okay, all right. I think it's time to end the show.
See you tomorrow. Peace.